Welcome to the Ad Agenda, coming to you on archive.kpfk.org. I'm Rita Gonzales. Here is another segment of Radio QGLLU. Welcome to the Radio QGLLU podcast, the show that takes a deep dive into what the queer, gay, and lesbian Latine community is talking about. I'm Rita Gonzales.
I'm Eduardo Archuleta.
I am Mario J. Novoa.
Hi, and I'm Lydia Otero. Cain Andrade is a passionate LGBTQ advocate and community organizer based in Los Angeles, California. Cain's commitment to equality and social justice was ignited at an early age. He began his journey by actively participating in local LGBTQ plus groups, attending community events, and volunteering for organizations like the LA LGBT Center. In 2017, Cain played a pivotal role in establishing Mi Centro, an LGBTQ plus community center in Boyle Heights, which is a collaborative effort between the LA LGBT Center and the Latino Equality Alliance. Cain's tireless work at Mi Centro has touched the lives of countless LGBTQ plus individuals and their families, providing a safe and supportive space for those who often face discrimination and other stigmas. He's also been actively involved in organizing events and workshops that promote LGBTQ plus awareness and equality, making a significant impact on the Boyle Heights community and beyond. Cain, can you start by sharing your personal journey and what motivated you to become an LGBTQ advocate and community organizer, particularly in Boyle Heights?
And thank you again for inviting me to your interview, to your podcast. I'm really glad to be here with all of you. First of all, I used to work at LAM Community, now People Concern in the downtown LA area. And so when I was working there in that community, I know that a lot of the folks that were LGBT in that particular community that were helping to transition from, street on the street living to units in a particular apartment building, a lot of the times these folks either had to remain stealth, just to kind of remain safe in the downtown LA area, Skid Row area, or some of the trans folks had to remain, very much on like the aggressive side or like on the defense side all the time. I felt the need to kind of like start to help more of those folks, specifically Latine LGBTQ folks. After a few years of working in Skid Row, getting to know that population and getting to know what was going on and what was not being provided, I started to look for other positions. I found the LA LGBT Center. There, I got hired by my former boss, John, and he said, you know what, we're going to take a chance. And he said something like take a chance only because I was really open about, some lack of experience with the work that they were doing with a particular program. I started with the social networking groups program at the LA LGBT Center, and it was basically a support group for every part of the community. After a while, I got to fall in love with Mi Centro, which had been established since October of 2015 with the collaboration of Latino Equality Alliance. So these two, LA LGBT Center and Latino Equality Alliance, got together during that time, created this space here, Mi Centro, to provide services for the folks in Boyle Heights and surrounding Southeast LA areas. So for the first few years, while I tended to the other program, I got to volunteer at Mi Centro, fall in love with the folks, and just get to know the community again. And just a little bit more background on why this community became so important and personal to me is that this is the community that welcomed my family back in 1980 when they immigrated from Mexico. And so it wasn't long before I actually found out that the apartment building where my family first lived back in 1980 was no more than a few blocks away from Mi Centro itself. So it became even more of like a personal thing, Mi Centro, other than just a job. I just fell in love with the community, started to build relationships with the folks out here, a lot of them, undocumented, a lot of them just, with food insecurities and no access to resources. And so, I just really wanted to help. And I guess above it all, I'm a helper. As I always say, like my grandmother raised me to be a helper. No matter who comes into your house, you get them a plate of beans, some tortillas, some bolillo, and you make them feel at home. You make them feel safe. You make them feel welcomed. And that was kind of like the core of what I always wanted to do here if I ever got to work at Mi Centro. A couple of years after I started working at the center, I got an opportunity to become the program manager for Mi Centro. And this was because I had started to work with one of our directors, Alan Acosta. And he was like, Cain, I want you to help me with this. I want you to help me with that. And then now comes the time, I want you to apply for the program manager. So I did, and I got it, and kind of just went full throttle on seeing how I could most help this community. And I was just blown away by what I found, by the disparity, by the injustices sometimes. And I just really try to do my best to funnel all the services that the LA LGBT Center has to offer all the way over here. So it's just been really my mission to make this space not only a place for resources, but for folks to feel safe, where folks can celebrate their culture, for folks to just be able to hang out here and just know that this is a safe space in their community. Because that sometimes being in this particular area, they don't always feel the safest. And so here I am 6 years later with the center, and I am now also a team of two because I just recently hired a program coordinator, also a Latina person, a trans Latina person actually. And so this person and I are just really trying to do our best to make it not so much of a job, but a Mi Centro movement to help all of these communities around here by just nurturing a lot of relationships with all the local organizations. And to be honest, again, skipping a little ahead, it's for this screening of Unidad was a perfect opportunity for me to invite some local organizations to say, hey, you know what? We have a really good opportunity to talk about our impact on the LGBTQ movement as Latinas. And so I think I answered a little bit and a lot more of what your question was. But yeah, this is personal to me. Mi Centro is, my heart.
This is Eduardo. Cain, as a community organizer, you've been involved in organizing events and workshops. Could you highlight a few of these initiatives and their impact on promoting LGBTQ awareness and equality in your area?
Yeah, well, one of the ones I really like to elevate is our mental health services. I feel strongly about it. I talk about it a lot, try to bring those into conversations. And so within the last year, we have established a really strong mental health program here at Mi Centro. I love it. One, because it is not a conversation folks often have in our families, at least it wasn't in our family. There are words that are used to refer to mental health and therapy in our families. You're just supposed to go to work. You're just supposed to kind of keep going and take care of your family, get your check, etc. And so when we were trying to really elevate this programming, it was important for me not to just kind of establish it and say, here it is, come and get it, the service, but also start conversations with this community. So I had one of our directors in mental health, Renato, and have him have conversations with a bunch of the families in this area. So for maybe 3 or 4 months, he came into one of our groups called Familias Entrelazadas. And so this group is an LGBTQ plus family and ally support system. And within these groups, we really started to have conversations about what is mental health, what is anxiety, what is in it, what is medication, what does it do, what doesn't it do? And what I saw was folks with the faces lit up, or they're the deer caught in the headlights kind of a look, oh my God, we get to talk about mental health, or what is mental health? A lot of these were parents and tias and grandparents of our LGBTQ folks. And so after these conversations in the 3 or 4 months that our director was having with them, the numbers started ticking up. We started to have more folks reach out to us and to just call or email or just come in and ask about mental health. And so that really made me happy. It just felt like, okay, these folks in this community and just Latina in general, folks in the country, really have been going through a traumatizing time because of administrations or just local things that are happening in our community, and they need the support. And sometimes, our caretakers, my parents or our community parents, they feel like their job is mainly just to take care of folks. and they don't often focus their own mental health for themselves. So somebody that might have that we talked to, one of the moms, started to talk to us about how she takes care of her trans daughter and what she does for her and what she does for her family. So at one point, we our director Renato asked us that, what do you do for yourself? What do you do for self-care, for your own mental health? And she kept on going back to what she does for her family. And it was at some point that Renato unintentionally brought her to tears because she could not focus on how she took care of herself. And so I mentioned this portion, like the family portion, the ally portion, because I feel like at Mi Centro, we think about the LGBTQ individual, but we feel like it's a family effort. Like when somebody comes out in our community or transitions in our community, everybody's involved. The siblings, the tios, the tias, the grandparents, everybody's coming along because they want to make sure their person is being protected, that they're being treated correctly. They want to learn about the community since they've never been exposed to it. And so we try to really focus programming that's just also family-based, that's inclusive of the entire family. And so these conversations really opened up and elevated this programming. So now we have mental health therapists here on site from Wednesday through Friday, and we can provide therapy via telephone call, Zoom session, or on site. And so this is an awesome service just because it can be done in Spanish, and so that is a very life-saving for folks, and these people that are here as therapists are conversational in Spanish, and that's super important because a lot of the times the language that large organizations like ours do is maybe they don't invest a lot on the language that is used. I tend to say that it sounds like Google Translate, but that's not how my family talks. That's not how my community talks. And so I want them to be familiar with the Spanish that we use. And so mental health is big. Legal services is also big. I won't go too much into that, but we have several programs that actually work out of here. One that's called El Proyecto de Apoyo Legal para Sobrevivientes, Legal Advocacy Project for Survivors. And that handles a lot of very intense cases, sexual trafficking, domestic violence, etc. There's other programs that handle more around the domestic violence, like STOP, and with legal immigration issues like Immigration Legal Project. So from time to time, they all kind of stop by. And those are the two services, really, mental health and legal, that we see folks more for.
Cain, this is Mario Novoa again. I wanted to follow up on, you said that there was an uptick in growth, and I wanted to can you maybe expand a little bit on that? And then I have a follow-up question as well. But the uptick from 2015, what does that look like in terms of numbers?
So when the center established this center location back in October 2015, it was mainly Latino Equality Alliance that really held a presence here at Mi Centro. We did have programming, from the LA LGBT Center, but it really hasn't been until the last 3 years that an officially assigned position was here. So it hasn't really only been until now that we really have started to build a more robust programming for us and to have more representation and funnel the power of the center to this community. And so sometimes it's just was lack of accessibility. This area right here in particular, I mean, there's no bus stops. Closest grocery store is 2 miles away. There's, sometimes little access to medical services. So although I feel this is a great place for Mi Centro because it's like a little sanctuary for people, it has taken more of a paced, timing to get to where we are right now. But it was well worth the wait because we are building something, really powerful. And now that we really established, a great connection with these communities, they trust us. They know our name. They come in and they just tell us about what's going on in the community. We've built really strong relationships, in part because we've always been consistent and being here in this community. And we do owe a lot to Latino Equality Alliance because even in the very beginning of the pandemic, when things shut down, we continue to we establish our prime pantry, our food pantry, every Friday from about 12 to 3 p.m. And so all masked up and hazmats and everything, just making sure that we were all protected. We were still like face to face with folks, and taking precautions and everything, but we were still talking to them. We were still asking what's going on. Like, are you all doing okay? What's going on in your communities? Do we need more help? So we were really fortunate to have that presence still going. And the Pride Pantry continued because, kid you not, that food insecurity has actually been growing. I'm not sure exactly what's going on in the communities other than, just lack of, access to services, to more jobs, etc. And so we recently actually had an increase of 20 more bags and boxes of dry goods and vegetables and fruits added to our usual requests for the food pantry. So now we're up to 80 boxes and bags every single week because the need in this community has been growing.
And my follow-up question is, and thank you for sharing that. That's really insightful information about Mi Centro. And I know we're going to take a deeper dive on more of the services, but I really have noticed like you are very passionate about Mi Centro and everything that you're involved in. Growing up, did you ever imagine that you'd be a leader in the LGBTQ in a LGBTQ Latina organization?
I don't believe so. I tend in my brain sometimes to think I was a reluctant leader. I always, even when I hear it today, when people call me a leader or something of that nature, I always say, you know what, I prefer guide. I prefer helper. Just because maybe, I did grow up feeling a bit invisible in these communities or even in my own family. And so for me to step into a role that suddenly, for me, it felt suddenly all just elevated me to all these tables where I got to have my voice represent these communities. It was a little overwhelming for me. I'm a very introverted person, if you can believe. After work, I disconnect, I go to my couch at home and I don't speak. But this is where I feel like it is my space to speak up here at Mi Centro or at any table that my previous bosses actually invited me to, or actually made space for me and said, Cain is going to sit here, get used to it. He's going to be this voice. So listen up. And so I'm really thankful to, folks like Alan Acosta, who, now he doesn't work with the center anymore, but he really kind of paved the way for me to say that you need to be here. Your voice is important. And I've gotten to believe that, I feel that now because of the relationships that, the community has with me, and they come in and they tell me what's going on in their communities. And I think the biggest signal of that trust that I have is that the ladies of the community, las señoras de la comunidad, they are the eyes and ears of this community. And they tell me what's going on. They tell me what they don't like. They tell me what program that could be useful here. And so I like to think of that more like, okay, my influence has grown. My, knowledge of, resources and local organization has grown. If that's leadership, then okay, I accept it as that. But maybe you can still see my body language and leader, okay, yes. But at the same time, I'm still gonna say, I prefer guide. Let me help guide you in some way.
This is Eduardo. Can you tell me more about the mission and goals of Mi Centro, the LGBT Community Center in Boyle Heights, which is a partnership between Los Angeles LGBTQ Center and Latino Equality Alliance?
You know what? It's an awesome collaboration here at Mi Centro, which is 50% Latino Equality Alliance and 50% the LA LGBT Center. I think it's a really unique collaboration. For one, you have the LA LGBT Center, this gigantic worldwide organization, 800 plus staff, 9 sites around this LA area. And then you have Latino Equality Alliance. So, it's a much smaller nonprofit. But the work they did do is big. And the work that they do inspires me just as much as the work that this giant organization that I get work for. And the reason is that Latino Equality Alliance does something that I don't feel is done by most other organizations, or maybe I don't see it enough. It's working in the communities that I grew up in, like Bell Gardens, Cutter Heights, Southgate. Those are the like communities that I grew up in. Those are where I felt like there was really no Latina LGBTQ resources available. I didn't know about the center until I started working for the center. And so now they've even gone ahead and built a second site in Bell called Misela, Southeast LA area, Misela. That's, I guess, like what really inspires me. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that inspires me with LA LGBT Center, but the fact that they're kind of on the ground with like 14 of their staff, either cleaning up the streets or building social justice programming, or just building programming for youth to empower them, to let them know there's a space for them, that they're safe, that they can come out, that they can transition. That's really just, it's so grassroots, that it just really like inspires me, because I see all the folks that I grew up with, all las señoras, that my parents would have at our place and that we grew up with in the neighborhoods. And so these two entities combined as Mi Centro just really make up, I feel like, a really powerful connection. I always say, like, I just kind of need the power, the resources that the center has to funnel it all over here, so that we can also help elevate Latino Equality Alliance in any way I can. I try to build also a space, a physical space that is welcoming for both of our organizations, for people to feel psychologically safe here, and to have like almost like a cultural community center that both organizations can be proud of. And that, yeah, is a passion. How do you curate a space that not only like provides services, but the space itself kind of elevates you? And I think that is one thing that my grandmother taught me how to do. Mi abuelita Anita, and she curated a home that was safe for people, and that's what I want to do.
Hi, this is Rita. I want to ask, you talked about mental health and you talked about legal services. What other services do you provide?
So in addition to mental health and legal services, we also have the Pride Pantry. That's the food pantry that we have every single Friday from 12 to 3. So there's no registration required. All you do is you come to our site at 553 South Clarence Street, and just kind of come and get in line, or just come into the lobby and start chatting up our folks here. And you get your box, you get your little bag of groceries, and you're good to go. Other services that we have, we can provide HIV testing and counseling, access to HIV medications. We also have community events. I think those are super important, like cultural community events. One that Latino Equality Alliance just had was the Day of the Dead Festival, which is called the Calavera Festival. And that just happened on October 21st. Gigantic event that they transform our site here with Catrines and Catrines and, the performers and blessing of the altar. And one that I had earlier this year was called Sabor. And we just established that 2 years ago. So we're only on our second or third one. Anyway, but so I call it Sabor de Mi Centro, which was in a way seen as a pride festival for the Latina community, but I wanted it to be more like a celebration. I wanted it to be family friendly. I wanted folks to be able to bring their kids here. A lot of the times I feel there's some events, with prides that are kind of sex positive, and there's a lot of imagery around that. But I wanted folks to feel comfortable. I want to give them small doses of our, Latina pride, our LGBT pride here. So that was my intent, to work with local organizations and just celebrate this community, this neighborhood, to be exact. Other things that we have are like the Familias Entrelazadas group, which is for the families and allies of our LGBTQ folks. I do want to bring more of those types of groups just in general, and see how we can provide more support to these communities and have them in Spanish, of course. And one thing that I'll tell you right now is something that's kind of been like a little dream of mine to have here at Mi Centro, and that I'm currently working on, and it's kind of like moving forward. It's called Mi Centro Academia, Mi Centro Academy. And so that's something that I've really been working on this year with my program coordinator. And so it's going to be a collaboration, first of all, with local organizations that can provide us basic courses in different skills. I want to empower this community. I want to have them advocate for themselves, teach, in a way, kind of teach them to fish, so that they can just go out into the council meetings and everywhere they need to and speak up for themselves and say, like, we want this for our community. This isn't right for our community. And so one of the first classes that we are establishing next year, February, is a course from LACC, a basic English course for this community. So I want them to be able to like have that, skill to be able to like advocate for themselves. And so along with that, maybe we'll have more like financial literacy courses, maybe self-defense courses, maybe basic information around legal immigration resources. So I really want to like educate these folks, give them like everything I can, while I can. The folks that want to work with us, LACC, Bank of America, a Boyle Heights Tech Center that's nearby, all these folks, it's like they've really been waiting for this kind of collaboration so we can elevate this community.
Okay, this is Rita again. These are very important questions now. Where is Mi Centro located? What's their phone number? How do we get in touch? Website, all that good stuff.
We are at 553 South Clarence Street, LA 90033. I guess the closest station around here would be Aliso station or the Mariachi Plaza station. So those are all our local areas where you can travel to Mi Centro from. Mi Centro is actually within a building called City Labs. So City Labs is like a creative workspace for social justice, other local organizations. So aside from our Latino Equity Alliance and us, we also have a little place called Cosmica Records that represents Latino artists in the community. So that's another one of our neighbors in here. It is an awesome place just because it feels very neighborhood, very like, just like a true community center. And you get those vibes as soon as you come in. And, we all here contribute to that.
Cain, this is Lydia. I'm so impressed and so proud of what you're doing. I mean, who could have predicted that this would have happened and that you'd be right there in Boyle Heights providing these services? So you're providing the community a lot of programming, a lot of services. But I hear there's an upcoming event on Friday, November 10th, where you're going to screen Unidad, Gay and Lesbian Latinos at the center, right?
Yes, we are. We're pretty excited. I mean, I think I'm looking forward to something like this that kind of really teaches folks, which Unidad does, about our impact with the LGBTQ plus movement. Like where were we at? I know that one of the people in the Latina community that I focus on a lot to gain inspiration from is Sylvia Rivera, that trans Latina woman that, just to make it all glamorous and images, like she's the one who threw that first Molotov cocktail, got things started and said like, we're not taking this anymore. We're gonna stand up. I mean, and she had a rough going sometimes, even like the general mainstream, like gay population said like, oh no, get off the stage. They booed her off the first LGBT pride, over there in New York. And so, I mean, she was one of the first Latina women that had to fight for, our impact on this movement. And so, just to have this type of screening here where hopefully I can even bring my parents to, they're in the late 70s, and to see the impact that my community had on what's going on is a super proud moment. That's why I've just been trying to invite as many folks as possible. Even though our space is limited, we'll make room because I just feel like it's an important discussion for folks to have around Unidad and what they're going to be shown, and to talk to Mario about it and talk to Roland about it. And those conversations is kind of really what invigorates me, because I get to hear what people are, what they see in the community, what needs to be done in the community. And so what I wanted to add to that is like, I've invited our first ever only Spanish speaking community advisory board at the center. These are folks that are volunteering their time to inform what they want to see here in these communities. And so I really wanted to invite them to the Unidad's documentary screening because they're very vocal. And I know they would have a lot to say about what they learn. And they're eager to get more information and to get empowered by what their children are going through. Because half of them, it's that their children are LGBT, and the other half is LGBT folks themselves. So I like this aspect of, our elders telling us what has happened, in addition to our youth telling us what's happening now.
I just want to end with one last question. What advice do you have for individuals who are inspired to become LGBTQ plus advocates and community organizers, especially in underserved areas like Boyle Heights?
One thing I recommend to everybody, I even recommend it to our directors and everybody that wants to establish programming here at Mi Centro, get to know the folks first. Talk to them, engage with them, share food with them. Yeah, you can have all the wonderful services and programming and like fancy signage and everything. Like if they don't know you, they're not going to trust you and they're not going to come. What I've always like also imparted on my program assistant, they're a young person, like late 20s. And it's like, we need to just continue to engage, a convivir con la gente aquí, con esta cultura. And so we need to get to know them intimately, talk to them, what's going on in their families, invest in who they are. I do this for the entire center and let them all know, please, before you write your grant, please, before you write signage, get to know them, get to know who you're writing these things for before you establish programming. So anybody that wants to get into this line of work, don't just start building policy and stuff like that. Go to the neighborhoods, get to know those folks, talk to them face to face, and then you'll get a feeling of what they really need because they'll tell you.
Thank you so much for joining us here on Radio QGLLU. It's been a pleasure. And so we learned so much about Mi Centro and you. We hope to have you back on the show again.
Absolutely. You let me know and I will be here. Maybe I'd even like bring my mom and my dad at some point. My dad talks a lot and my mom doesn't, but I'd be happy to. I was really proud to be invited. And so I thank you so much. And I'm looking forward to our two documentary stars, Rita and Lydia, on the Unidad screening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Want to say goodbye and thank you so much. I'm Rita Gonzales.
I'm Eduardo Archuleta.
I'm Lydia Otero.
And I'm Mario J. Novoa. In today's episode, we're talking with Cain Andrade from Mi Centro.
And join us next month for another edition of Radio QGLLU. And we want to hear from you. Tell us what you think of the Out Agenda and Radio QGLLU. Like us on our Facebook page or email us at theoutagenda@gmail.com. I'm Rita Gonzales. Thanks for listening and have a wonderful week. And remember that being out is the first step to being equal. Now stay tuned for This Way Out.